Assalamu alaikum students, welcome back to Global Public School online classes. In our previous class we studied about the lesson India's relationship with other countries, and I had requested all the students to read this lesson again because the lesson which we will study now, most of the concepts are quite relevant to that. So let's see which is the lesson which we will study here in this lesson, that is in this class, that is India's relationship of foreign policy, Indian foreign policy. So let's have the quick recap, let's have the quick information on what we are going to study here in this lesson. The first thing is the nature in the Indian foreign policy, the principles of Panchashila and the non-alignment policy, the disarmament policy, and also the apartheid policy. Don't worry students, we are going to read each and every concept very clearly so that you will understand every point of this. So not to worry when we see the names of them. Okay. So let's study that first. Students, like we studied in our earlier class of India's relationship with other countries, do you think a person can live without interacting with any other person, or do you think a person can live without having a relationship with other person? I think it's impossible, right? So we need to have a relationship on this earth to live, right? We cannot live without interacting with other people, correct? The same way here, you can ask me a question again. So, ma'am, how do we mingle? We can't live. You're saying that we can't live alone, but how do we mingle? You can actually mingle with other people. You can see the pictures of the kids here. By playing, by reading, by interacting, and by working with. Correct? So the next thing, students, do you think a farmer needs someone? Do you think a trader needs someone? Or do you think a businessman needs someone here? Yes, obviously. Students, a farmer needs a trader to sell his products. A trader needs a farmer to buy the products from him, and he needs the people to buy his products back for the end purpose. And also a businessman needs a people to work in his organization to fulfill the goals of the organization. So you can see some of the pictures here. Obviously an organization cannot grow from the single person. They need the workers, they need the employees to work and then to grow, right? So that's why we also need to mingle with people. The next thing here is, so far we studied about the individual, we talked about the individual person. So now, do you think a country can live without having any connections with another countries? Very rare, and it's kind of an impossible thing, because a country needs to have a relationship with other countries. You might be asking, ma'am, why do we need to have? Students, we need to have the relationship with other countries because the first thing is to sell the excess goods what we have produced. The second thing is for the border security, right? And the third thing is for the water sharing disputes, to stop the water sharing disputes, for the border disputes, and also to know, and also to increase the friendly number of countries, and also to know who our enemies are, right? So for all the things we should be having the relationship with other countries. So see here, each country will have the relationship with other nations in order to fulfill its needs. Like I said, we need to study about how the countries will have the relationship at the international level, students. You might be asking, what is foreign policy, ma'am? Very simple thing, students. The way one country acts towards the another country, we call that as a foreign policy. So you can see here, every country in this world is very important. It's like an essential thing for them to have a relationship with another countries. and roughly we have 200 countries in a world, and out of which some of the countries are strong countries, but most of the countries are weak countries. For example, here is America is a strong country and Uganda is a weak country. So every country should have their foreign policies. Either it's either it's a strong country or a weak country. Do you think India had any kind of foreign policy before 1947? There is a question, right, arises. Do you think? No, students, because we were not a sovereign country. Now you might be having the question, man, what do you mean by sovereign? Sovereign country. Sovereign is nothing but, students, we all know that we got an independence in the year of 1947, and before to that we were under the control of British. I mean, we did not had any kind of right to take any decision about our country. I mean, sovereign country is nothing but a country which is not under the control of any other people or any other country, internally or externally. So that we call it as a sovereign country. So obviously we got the freedom in the year 1947, right? So obviously before that we did not have any kind of foreign policy. Understood, students? So see here, yes, because of independence we can take the decisions related to our nations on our own. See, after that independence only we can easily take any kind of decisions related to our country, right? But initially it was not possible for us, and that is we call it as a foreign policy, students. So see here, what is the relationship of India with another countries? I mean, which are the neighboring countries of India? So see here, India has its own foreign policy after independence, and these are the neighboring countries which shares the borders of India. I mean, the borders of India. The first thing is Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Burma, and Sri Lanka. These are the neighboring countries of India which shares the borders of India. And see here, students, India has been considered as one of the strong country and the major country in the world because of the huge population what we have. It's not a disadvantage, it's also an advantage for us. Natural resources what we have, and also the kind of military intelligence we have, and the industries what we have. So because of all these factors, India is considered as a major countries in the world. And India is one of the few countries in the world in which they have their own foreign policy. So India has its own foreign policy. You might be asking, man, why do we need to have the foreign policy? What is the importance? What is the necessity? So one thing, students, to safeguard the national interest of our country, the first thing why do we need to have foreign policy is for the national security. And the second thing is for increasing the national economy by selling the goods extra what we have produced, by doing the business, by increasing the GDP of the country. And the third thing is to spread the cultural richness of our country with other countries. The art, music, love. The next, by increasing the number of friendly countries, we also get to know the power of our enemy countries. And last but not the least is for the world peace and coexistence. Students, do you think all the countries are fighting means, do you think the people will be alive in this world? No. In the last, mostly the weapons will be available, but not the people. So obviously to achieve the peace of the world and also to the coexistence. So this is the very important concept from your examination point of view. What are the aims of Indian foreign policy? I want you to remember this. The next concept what we want to study here in this lesson is students, who is our first Prime Minister? Jawaharlal Nehru. Yes, In his radio speech of September 7 before independence 1946, he actually outlined the foreign policy of India for the first time to the general public. He explained to the people about the foreign policy, and he gave a speech which actually showed an indication of the foreign relationship of India going to have with the countries like America, Russia and China. And our country's foreign policies are actually influenced by the many things: the national interest, the geographical interest, the political situation of the country, the economic interest, the military issues what we are facing in our countries, the public opinion. Students, remember one thing: our country is a democratic country. We select the leaders by voting. So the public opinion in our country is very important, and also in the international situation. So these are the factors which actually influence the foreign policy of our country. So that's all for today's students. In our next class we are going to study about the different policies, that is Panchashila principles, apartheid policies, anti-imperialism, disarmament, all that we are going to study in our next class. Till then, I want you to read this, revise this and write the explanatory notes and share it in the Google Classroom app. If you have any doubts, please send it through the Google Classroom app, students. Till that, students, stay safe, stay home and keep your learning burden on. Thank you so much, students. Allah Hafiz.